That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, that don't sound right, send us a comment. You're one of us.
Although I imagine there is a picture out there.
I'm sure there is.
There's a picture on, and I am not putting it on the website,
and
but if you want to go looking for it. Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, a podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts. I'm Peter Billman.
I'm Cecil Davis.
And we're just trying to have a conversation without Googling or fact-checking each other online. Those things can so easily kill the conversation.
I had some conversations about lace-up shoes this week.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Because of last week's episode?
Because of last week's episode.
Yeah, well, I did too.
And
in fact, I think someone's going to be bringing me a set of shoelaces that are actually made of elastic or bungee cord.
Right. And when we get to the next mailbag, we've got some mail pertaining to the shoes, too. So that'll be good.
Right. Now, you claimed that we were wearing New Balance when we were recording that episode.
I probably was wearing New Balance.
You sure it wasn't a Hush Puppy?
I don't think so. pretty sure I'd be a New Balance.
You would think Hush Puppies would have had the slip-on first.
Yeah, you would think so.
Maybe they did. I'm not familiar with their lineup.
Yeah. Slip-ons may have come and gone in this, and we don't even know it.
That's right. But while you were wearing those shoes, those comfortable shoes, you were out of town last weekend, and you were at a great music festival called Merle Fest that happens every year in the great state of North Carolina.
So I made my regular trip to Merle Fest. Music, moments, and memories is their tagline.
Well, you should know because you're semi-professional at this.
Yeah. Well,
Are you considered a roadie?
No. The roadies, we interact with them, and they're always usually super nice. But we are not a roadie.
You're not considered a roadie.
We're below the roadie.
You're below roadie.
We're below roadie.
All right. So what is it that you do at this Merle Fest?
So, me and a buddy, we are a stage crew. We volunteer for stage crew. These festivals thrive on volunteers. So they need hundreds and hundreds of volunteers.
You wouldn't take it from the ticket prices that they're thriving on volunteers.
You would not think. That's one of the reasons I volunteer. So you need tons of volunteers, and so you can be, you can do ground security or cleanup, and I'm on stage crew, which just means that you are extra hands for the roadies.
So do you set out the guitars for the musicians? Mm-hmm. Do you really?
Yeah, sometimes you get to set the actual instruments.
Have you actually handled?
Yeah.
Someone we know, their guitar?
Well, it depends on how much you're into the bluegrass scene. But,
all right.
Yeah, but I mean, Alison Brown had set up her banjos.
All right.
And, Scythian set their instruments up. Yeah.
Molly Tuttle?
Molly Tuttle played, but I did not. I didn't get to load in her stuff.
So this is a yearly ritual for you, right?
Yeah. Yes, we've done it, I think 12 or 13 years.
And where do you stay during the weekend?
So this is up in Wilkesboro, and so it's only about an hour and some change from Winston-Salem. So we have tried driving back and forth, which when you're working on a stage early in the morning, you get pretty worn out.
So you have to get there. You have to get there early.
Yeah, in the early days we did. They've moved some of the times back. We've tried camping.
Okay.
So we camp.
That sounds good, but I've seen a lot of rain at Merle Fest.
There's usually some rain at some point in the weekend. We didn't have it this year. Camping is interesting, especially at a music festival. So.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and then
because I imagine it's hard to find a camping spot.
It's hard to find a camping spot.
That's isolated.
Yeah, it's hard to find a camping spot. But we had a good camping spot. We had access to showers. But again, I mean, if you're working on the stage and you're staying up late at night, going back to a tent it's nice, but it's not as nice as having a nice warm bed. So for a while, we rented a nice basement in a beautiful house above the college. But then we lost that this year.
So it was rented. You rented it.
We rented it.
Like a VRBO?
Yeah,
VRBO.
VRBO, okay. But we just rented the basement. And But this year that was occupied by family members that were coming to Memorial Fest.
All right.
But that brings us to tonight's topic. And so we rented a VRBO.
Another VRBO, all right.
For all of us to stay in. The whole
How many people were in
crew, so
this
it was
one?
4 of us.
Okay.
We each had our own room.
Well, that's nice.
It was a nice cabin, like one of these cabin kits.
Yeah.
Natural pine wood. So, but here's the interesting thing. It was built. It was built on the side of a mountain. So they have made this. I don't know if you've been in any of these mountain communities now that are mainly vacation homes.
Yeah. I've seen them, and I've driven around some of them. I don't think, and I might have stayed at one of these houses.
So it's on a mountain. Somebody had a mountain.
A literal mountain.
A literal mountain.
Now, when you say mountain, we're not talking about like a big ridge or anything. We're talking a kind of an
isolated hill.
Mound, isolated hill.
Yeah.
The hill is
mountainous
probably
proportions.
500 feet in elevation change. Would you say?
Yeah, and so it had a very steep paved road, which surprised me because a lot of these communities do not put money into their roads.
Right.
They'll grade them, but they won't pave them. But this was a paved road. And it went up and up and up and up and up. And so we get to our VRBO. The VRBO, we park at the level of the road, but the house is below the road on the grade of the mountain. So we had to walk down probably 2.5, 3 flights of stairs to get to the front porch to go in the house.
Really?
So if you can imagine.
Why didn't they just build the road to the house or make the house?
Well, because it's on the side. So like the place that they found to build the house, the road's going up, and the house is below the road.
So the house is also. I mean, the road is also kind of cut into the mountain.
Yeah, so the road's cut into the mountain.
Okay, there's nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to build, so they basically hung this thing on the side of a mountain, and it had a beautiful view. Had a great view.
I'm sure.
But it is clinging to the side of the mountain.
Did you feel unsafe?
No. It was a new construction, well done, well built, but it is built to the side of that mountain. Like, clinging is the only word I can think of. Like, I don't know how they built. I don't even know how they got furniture into it because they would have had to carry it down these steps.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, washer, dryer, fridge,
and they were double wide steps, so they obviously made it so you could get stuff in and up, but you still had to carry it.
Yeah, right. I bet you that's why those houses cost a little bit more than your average house.
I would love to have seen this thing get built. Yeah. There were other ones being built, but they were being built like near the turns in the road where there was like some flat land where they could build them in. But a lot of them were just built below the grade of the road and just on the side of the mountain. All right, so that's the first issue is you're building the house. Because I think eventually, no matter how well you build this house and how well you have retaining walls, eventually something's got to give.
Well, I mean, think about some of these other neighborhoods or towns or cities in different, like in California or anywhere that's prone to heavy rains. You hear about landslides, and what's the first thing to go? The houses on the hill.
Yeah. Like I could see these things just eventually one day just
sliding down.
And the other interesting thing was, as you gained elevation, you lost access to water.
Oh, because you had to.
Because you had to dig. You either had to have a well.
Oh, right.
Or you're so high up. You're above any water.
Well, if you're 500 feet above the ground level, then you have to drill 500 feet through rock just to get the ground level. Then you have to keep drilling to get to where the water table is.
And so you could see like water relay stations. So obviously water was an issue with this community.
Oh, really? You said they had pumping stations?
Yeah, they had like pumping stations that were going up the mountain. But then they had signs posted in the house that said, please conserve water. And if you run out of water, here's where emergency water is in the house.
No way.
Yeah.
So we've stayed at a house in the Smoky Mountains, and it was up on kind of a ridge, so very similar. Yeah. It was up high. It was the dry season. We ran out of water. We were scooping water out of the hot tub to put into the toilet. I mean, that's exactly what we had to do.
Yeah. I mean,
there was no sign about conserving water. There was no warning that we could run out of water. And I think in the fine print of your VRBO, if you run out of water, tough.
Yeah. Did you have I guess you just brought in drinking water?
It was towards the end of our time.
Oh, okay.
So it's towards the end of our time when this started to happen. So we made do, and we got out of there.
Yeah. Well, so that's what I think people don't think about when they're building this. So there was a cabin when we lived in the mountains, beautiful little cabin, easily affordable. You could go and buy it right now.
Is it on Zillow? Should we look it up?
I don't know. I'd have to figure out where it is again in my head, but you probably can buy it right now. And the reason you could buy it
it's still for sale, you think?
It's still for sale 30 years later because it had no water. They built a cabin without access to water.
Do you think they just, they didn't, there was no way you could drill a well there?
Nope. There was no access. Because of where they built it.
Was it up high?
It was up high. It was kind of overhanging a river, and it was there was no.
A bad
spot. And it just makes you wonder if somebody built the cabin before if somebody from the flatlands built it.
They would probably know not to go up there and build it.
Well,
that's the problem when you're backpacking or camping up high.
Yep.
On the ridge. Oh, let's camp on this ridge. It's so picturesque. Yeah. Where's the water?
Right.
There is no water.
Right. Then you have to hike down to get the water. But, locals in the mountains don't build on ridges and tops of the mountains. They build down the valley.
Yeah, where the water is.
Where the water is and where the wind isn't.
Yeah, that they know.
Yeah, my buddy.
Well, it's probably the whole idea of building up on high is for that view.
Yeah, you're up there for the view. This is just like building something down the coast. I mean, you're building for the view, but then eventually the ocean claims it and washes it out in the water.
Right.
No, but as far as like living up on a ridge, we probably need to get my buddy in Alabama back on the show because I've made him in backpacking. I made him camp on top of Springer, which had a lot of wind.
Yeah.
And he said, I will never, ever do this again until the next time he went backpacking with me.
You took him again?
And we camped on a ridge.
Nice.
We camped on the windward side. So you could once if you were down low in your tent, you could feel the wind going across the top of you as it came up out of the valley that night and just washed over the ridge. So you had to stay low to stay out of the wind. So I've done that to him twice now.
So this was more of a form over function type of campsite or a form over function type of housing location.
Yeah, people are obviously doing it for the view, but there's no practicality to it.
No.
Yeah, short stays, no water.
Yeah, I really am curious about this house without any water. Certainly, they figured out how to.
I'll have to go back and look at that now. But yeah, I remember it just had no way to get.
I feel like in a lot of areas when you go to build a house, the land has to. Well, maybe it doesn't have to, but you usually get it tested, and I think the term is being perked.
Yeah, you have to have a perk test.
But I don't think that's necessarily for water.
The perk test is for sewer.
Right. It's how much the sewer can settle and drain back in through the water table and not overflow the tank.
Right.
I think that's what that is. And they size it for the size of the house. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, it's perked for that. Size for 1-bath, 2-bedroom, 1-bath. That's what it's for.
And so I guarantee people built houses before there were regulations in areas that didn't.
Well, how in the world did how in the world did this mountain cabin perk? There's no
that didn't.
Where did is this like the train?
What's that?
That you just opened up the toilet and you saw the ground?
I don't. Well, have you ever rafted the Golly?
Yeah.
There's a outhouse on the Golly like that.
Really?
It just you step into it and you're out over the river.
Oh, you are not.
I am. I'm very serious.
They don't do that anymore.
Yes.
No, that don't sound right. No.
That was probably 15 years ago. Yeah.
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah,
There's no way.
You were sitting out over the river.
No.
Yeah, it was on kind of like a little tributary to the river.
Well, that makes it even worse. Oh, good.
I saw that. I used it. I know it was there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not there anymore.
On the Golly.
That is just not. That is not ecologically.
Hundreds of people coming through
that is disgusting.
And using that.
That is not ecologically.
You could see the rocks.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
No, there's no way.
Yeah, that was.
They closed that down.
You think they still don't do that? They have to have latrines on the river because
they probably bring that. They carved out a road and they're putting porta johns in.
You think so?
That's what they're doing. There's no way they're letting hundreds of people dump into the river like that.
Back then they did.
Especially when you're paddling downstream on it.
Well, it did make you think as you got back into the raft. Hey, where's all that? It's going to be going with me down the river.
Yeah, you get into the raft and you think, well, I've got another reason not to fall out.
Well, a large body of water had gone by, unless you catch up with it.
I think we coined the phrase "dilution is the solution to pollution," right? But you still got the upstream rafters that are going to be catching up to you. Yeah. Nah, they don't do this. No. There's no way they do this.
We got to ask about that. I did notice that because I took a train the other day, the trains do not flush down directly on the track anymore. They have a water management system built in.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know because walking the train tracks would not ever be the same again. But go back to your mountain house. What's the septic system there? I mean, do you think they must run pipes down the mountain to a centrally located septic system? Because there's no way you have a septic tank on the side of a mountain.
I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe they have some central.
I mean, if they have central pumped up water, I'm sure they have a central.
Or maybe just like on the gully, they just flush.
Well, that's what I was asking. Did you see the ground below you?
No,
okay,
no.
All right.
They had regular flush toilets.
All right.
But when we were looking for a house in Asheville, they had built a new community, and they were very open about the fact that they had built it in the 100-year floodplain.
Really? A 100-year floodplain?
Yeah. I was like,
what time was this? What year was this?
It's 94, 93, 94.
90.
No, it was 96.
So this was before.
96, yeah.
This was before Hurricane Floyd.
Yeah.
Came through North Carolina.
Yeah.
And flooded a 100-year floodplain.
Yep. And
took everyone by surprise.
Because you don't know where you're at in the 100-year floodplain timetable.
Now, I don't think it's a strict 100-year cycle. Do you?
No, it's a statistical cycle.
This is the odds of it happening.
Yeah, the odds of it happening in 100 years. But the weird thing is, you could have two back-to-back 100-year floods, and that's a statistical cluster where they're really occurring in over a 250-year period, right, but they just happen to occur in the two subsequent years.
Well, I think also recently with all the floods that happened, especially in the eastern part of the state, they've reconsidered what a 100-year floodplain is now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's no longer 100-year floodplains. You have to be a lot further away from the water now.
But they shouldn't.
So they built it. They built like a whole community, or just was this one person?
It was a whole community, but the back of the community was just kind of grazed that 100-year floodplain.
Oh, okay, just grazed it.
Yeah, but again, that's not something you want to play around with.
I wouldn't think so, but it sounds like though they're on the edge of it. They weren't in it.
I think the back of the property would have been considered technically in the floodplain. Yeah, that's what was so concerning about it.
Yeah, I don't know how insurance works for that. I mean, you can't buy flood insurance except through the federal government right now.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised if they even let people build enough floodplain and then agreed to insure them. Yeah. Although they let them build right alongside of the ocean all the time.
Right.
And guess who pays for their insurance premiums? Yeah. And you and I, sitting here in the Piedmont, we pay for their insurance. Our premiums are paying their. You know that, right?
Oh, yeah. I know that. Yeah. Absolutely, I know that. And and we're also paying for probably houses that slide off the side of mountains.
We probably do.
Well, even inside the cities, like in Cary, where I grew up, that we have in this community too. We have things I consider called house in a hole.
House in a hole,
and that's where you have houses built below the street grade. Have you ever seen that? They have like a steep driveway going down to the house because they built the house below the grade of the road.
Right, but the hill keeps on going down to somewhere else, right?
Yeah, it goes down somewhere else. It's not like in the mountains, but I'm just saying. So like, it just fascinated me in Cary where they were just building houses everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, right along Ebert, and then right along over here in Sherwood Forest Road.
Yeah,
you drive down. You're essentially driving down to a floodplain.
Yeah,
for the Silas Creek.
Yeah.
That's where the park is, and then they built that house maybe 20 feet above that.
Right.
But you still got, you're right. You got to drive down off the side of the road to get down into your hole.
Yeah, and I was just like, why would you do that? Why would that even be it has to be money that you're just using up every available.
Oh, I'm almost sure of it.
You know, that's an interesting point that you just brought up.
What's that?
Eventually, one day, Solace Creek is going to have a big flood.
I wonder about that.
Yeah, it will. It will.
I mean, it's gotten big.
Yeah.
But it hasn't gotten that big. You know, I don't think it's actually ever covered the actual park, like the park horse. It is. I mean, I think it's why. Yeah, I don't think it's gotten that high. It might have gotten this.
It's gotten over its banks.
It's gotten over its banks, but I don't think it's coming up, kind of raging up the side of the hill yet.
Can you imagine how much water that would be?
That'd be a lot of water.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of water.
I wonder about that too.
Well, and also because we've closed off some streams in Winston-Salem. Like the place where we used to live in Winston-Salem, they had just drained a lake and cut off a drainage area.
Really?
Yeah. But all that is a big setup for a flood.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Where is this?
In Foxhall.
Oh, Foxhall, really? That used to be a lake?
There used to be a pond there, a farm
Yeah.
pond, and it had a drainage creek, and they just shut all that off.
So is the road on top of where the creek would have been?
The houses and roads are on top of where the pond was.
Okay.
But the creek's still there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And I've seen it get high. Really.
Yeah, that's right.
Because there's nowhere for it to go.
Strange places we build houses.
Strange places.
There's a lot of other places we could build houses.
That's my offering for this week for that don't sound right.
That don't sound right. Well, I think the one that don't sound right the most was the whole Golly River toilet situation. Out of everything you mentioned tonight, that's the one that I ain't buying.
I've got witnesses to that.
I don't doubt it. They did at the time, but I don't think they're doing it. There's no way they're doing it now.
I remember it distinctly. I was like, this is pretty hardcore.
That's third world country, man. Yeah. They don't do that around here.
I mean, it was probably 20 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe they've got new rules.
They have got. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine them still doing it now in this day and age? With the sensitive we are to ecology,
it'd be hard to get away with it now.
I just don't think that's going to.
In case I didn't paint the correct picture there, so the outhouse. So if you raft the Golly.
Golly is a whitewater river.
Right. Yeah.
It's actually a very dangerous. I mean, it's one of the ones. It's on a lot of people's bucket list.
Yeah. I will not be doing it again.
Neither will I.
It's one and done for me.
Right.
But if you remember, there was a point halfway. There's the upper Golly and the lower Golly, and on the trip we were on, there was a break where we had lunch.
Yeah.
Now this lunch site, you could go to this outhouse that was up from the campsite or up from the lunch site, and you would walk out and you were hanging out over some rocks.
Come on, man.
Over the river.
Come on.
And it was just a hole.
No.
Oh man, if I only had a picture of that.
No one wants a picture of that. Although I imagine there's a picture out there.
I'm sure there is.
There's a picture and I am not putting it on the website. But if you want to go looking for it, Google is your friend here.
That's probably why it's not there anymore. Is because enough people took pictures of it and said this don't sound right.
Yeah, I mean, it only took a couple Instagram shots and we're shutting this thing down.
Yep. All right, well, it don't sound right.
Speaking of shutting this thing down.
We need to shut this thing down. They don't sound right, but you've come to the end of another That Don't Sound Right.
Hey, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. If this is your first time and enjoyed the conversation, would you consider hitting the subscribe button on the platform you listen with? Also, if you're a long-time listener, go out there, give us a rating, and leave us a review so others can easily find us and join the conversation.
If you're looking for a t-shirt, remember Wonderfully Made Designs is a small business specializing in custom-made t-shirts. Contact Casey on Facebook at Wonderfully Made Designs 139.14. Use code TSR10 for 10% off your first purchase.
It's been a long time since I've said this, but the numbers matter.
That Don't Sound Right is a production of TSR Podcast in conjunction with Campbell City Studios. I'm your co-host and sound engineer, Cecil. Peter is your other co-host and the web designer. Camille is our barista. Emily is our graphic designer. Ella does our Instagram. Giorgio tests our merchandise. Brent is our international brand ambassador. And as always, listener number one is
Scott.
So until next week, keep talking.
And stay curious.